Use Microsoft Excel to calculate the sampling mean, or the probability of the sampling mean. So up top here we have the formulas from last chapter when we weren't working with a sampling mean. Norm_dist or norm.dist. We're going to use norm.dist because that's the one for Excel 2010 and newer versions. But just so you know, there is a version, the norm_dist, if you're using Excel 2007 or earlier. This is the formula we used last chapter, and it doesn't allow for sampling mean. So all we're going to do, there is no formula really for sampling mean, so what we're going to do is we're going to modify the formula. We can't use x bar because it isn't a symbol that Excel recognizes, so we have to use x, but really what we're working with here is x bar or sampling mean value. The population mean goes here, and then instead of the standard deviation, we're going to put the standard deviation divided by the square root of n. If you recall, that's the formula, that's the variation in the formula for this chapter to get us the sampling error because we're working with a sampling mean. So that's really all you have to do, and you can literally use the formula square root to show that as well. So what we're going to do here, we have some data. We have x bar being 4. The mean of this particular group of data is 6. Standard deviation is 1.2. And we have a sample size of 16. So as we scroll down here, we can see this is what the formula would look like. If we keyed it in with numbers, it would be norm.dist. 4 is our x bar value. 6 is our mean. 1.2 is our standard deviation divided by the square root of 16. Now if it's an easy number like 16, you could just put in the value if you wanted to. We know the square root of 16 is 4. I could just type 4 there, but you can actually use the formula for square root, which allows you to use odd sample sizes that are not easily calculated, like 13 or 11 or something. And this is what it would look like if we used cell references. So in this example, my x bar is in cell B7, mean is in B6, standard deviation is in B9, and my sample size is in B10. And so I line them up here. And in this case, it happens to be a very small probability in this particular instance, but this is how you would do it. So really, all you have to do if you're using any of the formulas from the previous chapter, and there was only 3 if you recall, if we're using norm.dist, simply insert that square root of n with your standard deviation. If you're using norm.inv or norm inverse, the same thing. When it asks for standard deviation, put in that sampling error. And the third formula was actually just converting a z-value and looking up the percentage, and so it didn't require any standard deviation, and so there's no modification to that formula at all. And that's just how you do it. You just have to go in and manually modify the original formula and allow for that sampling error.